Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good evening everyone and good morning everyone. Today we're going to be discussing a sutta called appassuto, which appears in the Anguttara Nikaya 4.6. 4 means Chatukka Nipada, the fourth section of Anguttara Nikaya. And as you can see, that tonight's discussion will be the 76th discussion of the Monday Sutta discussion series, and I'll be very happy to continue this whole series, which has no particular end of the discussion dates, so that will be a good thing. So the topic that I have put for today's discussion with this appassuto sutta is, who are the four kinds of persons with lesser learning? We call it appassuto in Pali. And sutena anupapanno upapanno are two divisions of this person who has a lesser learning, and greater learning, which we call by bahussuto in Pali. Sutena anupapanno and upapanno are two kinds of great learned persons that lead to the progression of the Dhamma. So there are four kinds of people who learn and practice Dhamma. So depending on how they learn and practice, the progression of their Dhamma path it depends on those particular things. So in today's talk, we're going to be discussing what kind of learning that these four individuals have. I mean, we all are a part of these four. We could be into any of these individuals. And what are the issues when it comes to learning, as well as what do we call by practice. So let me read the sutta first. First sutta goes this way in Pali. Chattaro me bhikkhave puggala santo sangvijamana lokasmin katame chattaro. So now what we can see in the sutta is mendicants, monks, these four people are found in the world. What for a person may have. Now the sutta talks about these four individuals separately. Appassuto sutena anupapanno, appassuto sutena upapanno, bahussuto sutena anupapanno, bahussuto sutena upapanno. So the first person is appassuto sutena anupapanno, which means appassuto means little learning. Sutena anupapanno means and not get the point of learning. Okay, so we're going to be looking at these individual people after we talk about names of the generic nature of these individuals. So for the first person who has a little learning and not get the point of learning, why that person wants to learn the text. So learning basically means Dhamma, and the point of learning is something else. We know what it means. Point of learning is the practice, application. So basically it is Sila, Samadhi, Panya. The second person is appassuto sutena upapanno. Little learning. This person has a little learning, but she gets the point of learning. She knows what's the point of learning, why I learn the Dhamma. Third person, bahussuto sutena anupapanno. Much learning or great learning, but not get the point of learning. which means this particular person learns a lot, reads, listen to the Dhamma a lot, but do not get the point of why I am listening to the Dhamma talk, why I am reading Dhamma on internet, why I am reading Dhamma books. She doesn't get the point of learning. Bahussuto sutena upapanno. This person is the greatest person out of these four. This person has a great learning or much learning. Also, this person gets the point of learning. This person knows why I learn the Dhamma. So these are four individuals. The first person is who has a little learning and not get the point of learning. The second person is who has a little learning but get the point of learning, which is a little better. But he has a problem in listening to Dhamma, so compared to his practice. The third person who has a much learning, but not get the point of learning. The third person who learns the Dhamma a lot, but there is no practice or application part into his life. The fourth person who has a great learning as well as who understands the point of learning. Now let's take a look at what is this little learning, what is this greater learning, as well as what is learning meant by in this sutta. Katancha bhikkave puggalo appassuto hoti sutena anupapanno. And how has a person learned little and not got the point of learning? Ida bhikkave ekachassa puggalassa appakang sutang hoti. Suttang geyang veyyakaranang gatha udanang iti buttakang jatakang abbhuta dhammang vedallang. Now here it says about what the sutta means. So what is meant by sutta is given here in 9 ways. It is when a person has learned a little of the statesman. So this is what we call Navanga Sattu Sasana. Now Navanga Sattu Sasana is a classification of the Dhamma Vinaya in a literary aspect. Now we know Tripitaka is a very later kind of classification before Tripitaka, because Abhidhamma was not displayed in the same way what we know in the Buddhist in the early Buddhist texts. We basically know that it could have been added to, the name Abhidhamma was a part of Sutta, but Abhidhamma being a different set of books, this kind of thing may have been added to the mainstream Dhamma around the 3rd century BCE. So the thing is, Navanga Sattu Sasana, the classification of Navanga Sattu Sasana, which has a literary classification about the Dhamma and Vinaya, was even taught by the Buddha, was even discussed by the Buddha. That's why we can see Navanga Sattu Sasana, which means 9 limbs or 9 parts of the Dhamma Vinaya, has been given in relation to sutta perspective. A person who knows the Dhamma has been discussed with the 9 perspectives of the Dhamma Vinaya. We need to know what they are. The first part is sutta. So sutta is basically now there are different translations. Sutta basically means statements, right? Let me see a good one. Prose passages. So it's kind of prose passages. When you say a sutta, you can't see verses. You can't see verses in particular. So sutta basically means prose passages. Now even you see some suttas carry some stanzas, but when it was written, they were written as prose passages, right? So what are we'll be digging into what are the examples for these 9, but at the moment we're going to be discussing what they basically mean. So sutta basically means prose passages, and then suttam, geyyam means mixed prose and verse. So it's kind of a mixture of prose and verse. So there are Dhamma sections where you can see both prose and verse. So we call it, the translations seem to be kind of erratic in a sense, but I would say Geya simply means mixed prose and verse. And Vyakarana means, now somebody can translate Vyakarana to be discussions. So basically discussions. So, kind of engaging discussions that we can see in the Dhamma Vinaya. So sutta means prose passages, Geyyam means mixed prose and verse, Vyakarana means discussions. And Gatha means verses, which you call stanzas. Udanam means the inspired utterances. In other words, we know there's another word for them, inspired exclamation. So we see Arahants and the Buddha, they were uttering some verses or whatever their inspired expressions when they became the Buddhas, when they became Arahants, when they enjoyed environment and so on and so forth. So those kind of exclamations or inspired utterances are called as udana. Itivuttaka is a separate book which you see under Kuddaka Nikaya, but in here what we understand by Itivuttaka is basically the sayings of the Buddha that he gave at different places. Itivuttaka. Jatakam means, Jataka, the stories of past life. So the stories of the Buddha in his previous lives as the Bodhisattva. Abhuta Dhamma means amazing, or what do you call, miraculous, amazing stories of the Buddha. Basically, they are about Buddha. If you can remember, one of the suttas in the Majjhima Nikaya, Abhuta, Acharya Abhuta Dhamma Sutta, there are around 20 incidents that normally happen when the Bodhisattva was born, Prince Siddhartha was born. Those miraculous and surprising, events, they are called Abhuta Dhamma. And Vedalla means basically questions. I would say they are questions. So that's the 9th part. Now, if you can remember places where we understand, things like, discussions that happen between the Buddha and other individuals, and especially some suttas like Chula Vedalla, Mahavedalla suttas, where we can see questions and answers. So those are what we call by Vedalla. Now, when you say somebody who has a little learning, this person has a little learning about these 9 sections of the Buddhist text or Dhamma Vinaya. If I am to tell you once again what they are, Suttam, which you call by prose passages. Geyyam is mixed prose and verse. Number 3 is Vyakarana. Vyakarana basically means discussions, and Gatha is verse. Udanang is exclamations or inspired utterances. Itivuttaka is a separate book which we already know in the Kuddaka Nikaya. Jatakang is Jataka stories. Abhuta Dhamma is marvelous and miraculous stories. Vedala is Q&A, I would say Q&As, questions and answers. So these are the 9 things that we all have to study. So if you don't have adequate amount of learning of these 9, that means we have a little learning. So when it comes to the first person, what we can see is this first person has a little learning about these 9. So she doesn't seem to have a good learning of these 9. Not even that, but also this particular person is Sutena Anupapanno, which means, and with the little they have learned, they understand neither the meaning nor the text. So which you call Vedallang. So tassa appakassa sutassa na attamanyaya na dhammamanyaya. So not even there is a little learning, but also this particular individual, understand neither the meaning nor the text. So it seems to me that this particular person may have not studied anything at all, not even the text, but also the meanings. If that person doesn't study the text, then there will be no study about the meaning. Most importantly, now we know that this person doesn't study the text or the teaching, which is in all these 9 sections of the Dhamma Vinaya. Then there is no meaning, there is no study about the meaning. Most importantly, na dhammanu dhamma patipanno hoti. Nor do they practice in line with the teaching. So there is no practice, no application. This is a big stumble, right? So that's how a person has learned a little and not got the point of learning. Now we can understand there is a person who has a very little learning about 9 sections of the Buddha's teaching. This person, not even he has a very little learning about the 9 sections of the Buddhist text, but also this person has no study, no understanding about the text, plus the meaning, and there's no application at all. So this is the first person who has a little learning and not get the point of. So she doesn't know the point of why. So there is no point of learning without learning adequately of the Dhamma Vinaya. Let's go to the second person. Katancha bhikkhave puggalo appassuto hoti sutena upapanno. And how has a person learned little but has got the point of learning? So there is a person who learns a little, but she understands the point of learning, right? Ida bhikkhave ekachchassa puggalassa appakang sutang hoti. Suttang geyang veya karanang gata udanang itivuttakan jatakang abhuta dhammang vedallang so tassa appakassa sutassa attamanyaya dhammamanyaya dhammanu dhamma patipanno hoti evañ ko bhikkhave puggalo appassuto hoti sutena upapanno. Now it's pretty clear. This particular person has also the same little learning. I mean, I wouldn't say that these two individuals have no learning at all. They may learn a little, but the second person, the second person has a little learning, just as the first person. This second person is trying to understand or understands the meaning of the understand the text, also understands the understand the meaning of the text as well as the text plus the meaning of the text. Not even that, dhammanu dhamma patipanno hoti. And this person also practice what she learns in line with the teaching. That's the most important, practice, right? That's how a person has learned a little but has got the point of learning. Okay. Now, the second person seems, better than the first person. Third person, katancha bhikkave puggalo bahussuto. Now we know the third person is who has a greater learning, but not get the point of learning. It's pretty clear that this third person, even though she knows the Dhamma a lot, but there's no practice. That's why the problem is. Let's take a look at the interpretation of how this particular person is given here. Katancha bhikkave puggalo bahussuto hoti sutena anupapanno. Ida bhikkave ekachassa puggalassa bahum sutang hoti. Suttang geyyang veyyakaranaං gāthā udānaං iti buttakan jātakang abbuta dhamma vedalla. So tassa bahu kassa sutassa na attamanyāya na dhammamanyāya na dhammānu dhamma patipanno hoti. Evaṁ ko bhikkave puggalo bahussuto hoti sutena anupapanno. And how has a person learned much and has got the point of learning? How has a person learned much but hasn't got the point of learning? It's when a person has learned much of the sutta, geyya, veyyakarana, udgatha, udana, itibuttaka, jataka, abbuta dhamma, vedala, and all those 9. But even though they have learned much, they understand neither the meaning nor the text. Nor do they practice in line with the teaching. So there's no understanding about the text, meaning, and practice, application. That's how a person has learned much but hasn't got the point of learning. Now, the problem is mere learning without the practice, the practice is problematic. That is what we can see. The third one. The fourth person is the greatest person, as I told you. Katancha, and this is the person we all want to be. Okay, katancha bhikkave puggalo bahussuto hoti sutena upapanno ida bhikkave ekachassa puggalassa bahum sutang hoti suttang geyyang veyyakaranaං gāthā udānaං iti buttaka jātakang abbuta dhammang vedalla. So tassa bahukassa sutassa attamanyāya dhammamanyāya dhammānu dhamma patipanno hoti. Evaṁ ko bhikkave puggalo bahussuto hoti sutena upapanno. Now, this is the person we all need to be, and let's see what the particular characteristics of this particular person. And how has a person learned much and has got the point of learning? It's when a person has learned much of the sutta, geyya, veyyakarana, gāthā, udāna, itibuttaka, jātaka, abbuta dhamma, vedalla. Now, these are the 9 sections of the Dhamma Vinaya at that time, in the Buddhist time. And we know these 9 were given in a literary basis. Now, Dhamma Vinaya was the main classification that we know at the Buddha time, but the Tipitaka was a very later kind of branding, labeling of the Dhamma Vinaya, and we know it could have been happened around the 3rd BCE, after 300 years of the Buddha's passing away. But during the Buddha's time, Buddha also used another way of classifying the Dhamma and Vinaya based on a literary perspective, because there is a literary perspective when you see these 9. So the person who has a great learning of the Dhamma Vinaya, all these 9, because it's on a literary perspective, not even he or she has this greater learning, but also she knows the meaning of the text. She knows the text. Not even those two, but also, most importantly, she practices that great learning in his or in her life. So that's the most important thing. So mere learning the Dhamma with teachers on the internet, with the Dhamma books, wouldn't make you into the real Dhammic practice. So the best thing for all of us is to learn as much as you can, but more than what you learn from these sources, you need to put the little knowledge that you know about the Dhamma into practice. That's how you're gonna become this fourth person. So now you understand the two things. There are four people. These four people are classified depending on two things: sutta and sila. So sutta means the learning about 9 sections of the Dhamma, which we call Sutta Viyakarana, Gata Udaniti Buttaka Jataka Buddhama Vedalla, and Upapanna means Upapanna or Anupapanna means Sila part. Sila part means your practice. So regardless of how many times, or regardless of how much Dhamma you learn from somebody else, from any source, your success or your progression of the Ariya Magga, the noble path, depends on how much you put that knowledge, learning into practice. Okay, and somebody may ask, isn't learning the Dhamma also a part of practice? Yeah, that's an approach, but it's not the real practice. The real practice is your application. So you need to get this knowledge, but you are progressing with the Dhamma that you learn when you exactly put that Dhamma into your life, especially when you put that knowledge, great learning into action. So that's most important at this point. And then there are a couple stanzas which we can see at the end of the sutta. Let's take a look at what they are. Imeko bhikkave chattaro puggala santo sangvijjamana lokasminti. There are the four people found in the world. Now, all of us become a part of these four. So you can cross-check, you can check what kind of a person out of these you are by looking at the characteristics of these four people. Especially this is given depending on how you practice, how you learn the Dhamma and practice the Dhamma. Okay? Appassutopi chehoti silesu asamahito ubhayena nangarahanti silato cha sutena cha. If you don't learn much and aren't steady in sila, they will criticize you on both counts for your sila and your learning. So the most important thing that you have to understand is this Dhammapada, Ariya Magga, includes two things: learning and the practice. So we call learning to be sutta and practice to be sila. That's what we understand by Upapanna, Anupapanna words, Pali words. So who are criticizing you? The wise people, Vinyu. You have to be somebody who is praised by the Vinyu, wise individuals, not by the intellectuals, not by intelligent people, but by the wise people. Wise people are those who speak good words, beneficiary words, who execute wholesome actions, who think wholesome thought. They are the wise individuals. So you shouldn't be in the criticism of those individuals, wise individuals. You will be criticized by those individuals if you are not steady in your learning as well as your sila, right? So in other words, I would say, if you do not have these two, either sila or sutta, which means learning and sila, you will be definitely criticized by the individual. You need some sort of learning and the practice. Second, appassuto piche hoti sile susamahito silato nang pasansanti nasta sampajjate sutta. if you don't, now this is about the second person, if you don't learn much and you are steady in sila, they will praise your sila since your learning has succeeded. Now, the Vinyus, the wise people, they respect you. They praise you because you have at least the sila part. Because sila is what? Now, regardless of you learn a lot or you learn a little, the most important thing is that you have at least a little amount of your sila, right? So that's more important, because if you don't have sila, that's the most important thing after your learning. Some people, they largely ignore about sila for different reasons. Because you have sila, even you don't have, even if you don't have sutta, still it's okay. So the wise or the Vinyus, the Sappurisas, praise you. The third one, bahussutopi che hoti silesu asamahito silato nang garahanti tassa sampajjate sutta. This is the third person. If you learn much, now suppose you are a person who learns the Dhamma a lot, right? Who always listen to Dhamma, all the Dhamma talks. You are not missing out on any Dhamma talk. Such kind of a person, if you learn a lot, but aren't steady in sila, they will criticize your sila for your learning hasn't succeeded. So yours, the fruition of your learning is sila. If you don't have sila, although you are an intellectual, well-read person of the Dhamma, they will criticize you, because the sila is the most important part. That's what you will become after the learning. Bahussutopi che hoti silesu susamahito ubhayena nang pasangsanti silato cha sutena cha. This is the person that we all like to be like. This person has both the learning as well as the practice. If you learn a lot, much, and you are steady in your sila, they will praise you on both counts for your sila and your learning. So it is like this. Now, you are securing the most important thing in your Dhammapada, that is sila. At the same time, if you have the learning, so it's kind of a bonus, in addition to your sila. So they will praise you a lot because you have the sila, you also have the learning. But you know how to manage, how to stay balanced with the practice, in regard to your learning. Your learning has not taken over your practice. You have to let sila arise a lot, more than the learning, because learning is what helps you to practice the Dhamma, and it shouldn't delimit, it shouldn't confine your sutta, the learning part. The last stanza, bahussutang dhammadarang sappanyang buddha savakang nekhang jambodanasseva kotang ninditu marahati devapinang pasangsanti brahmunapi pasangsitoti. Now, Buddha is referring to the person who we understand by the fourth category classification here, one who has a good learning of the Dhamma as well as the practice, great practice. She has practice in abundance. So this particular individual is being appreciated by the Buddha in different other ways. A wise disciple of the Buddha, the person who we know by the fourth, person who has both learning and the practice. A wise disciple of the Buddha who has much learning and has memorized the teaching. So memorization is good, but it should not take over your sila practice. You have to be very careful. Keep your knowledge, keep your learning somewhere else, but get the most out of your learning for sila. Sila is our emphasis, not just the learning. Who has much learning and has memorized the teachings. It's like a coin of mountain gold. So it's a precious kind of gold. Who is worthy of criticism them. Even the gods praise them. And by Brahma too they are praised. Now, if someone has a lot of learning, also has sila more than that particular learning, this is the person who is appreciated, praised by the wise individuals, not even the wise individuals, but also the Devas, Brahmas, Buddhas, and Arahants, and all those who are on the noble path. I think now you understand. The important thing that you need to learn from this sutta is learn the Dhamma, but try to practice that Dhamma in your life. That is what we call by sila. So sila is what you need to keep in your mind when you are learning the Dhamma. If you don't think that you want to put your learning into sila, and you're going to be a person like, in the first 3 sections. Okay. Now let's take a look at some more details about this sutta and the ideas. Now, what we can understand in this sutta is that the second and the fourth persons seem progressing in their spiritual paths. So who is the second person? One who has little learning, but who has progress by his learning. I mean, who has practiced sila with that little learning. So that person is appreciated, as well as the fourth person, which we know by, who has a great knowledge, but also who has a great practice of sila. Now we know sutta basically refers to Dhamma, which we know by Sutta Geya Veya Karna Gata Udana Itivuttaka Jataka Abbhuta Dhamma Vedalla. Upapanna simply means the practice of Sila Samadhi Panya. And in last Monday's discussion, we talked about Sila Samadhi Panya. We've been talking about these 3 disciplines in a different way. We were talking about Panya. So you need Sutameya Panya first, because you need to understand what you need to do. That is not in the Sila. That is what we call Sutameya Panya. But you don't try to practice Chintamaya and Bhavanamaya before you practice Sila Samadhi, because the thing is that you can't do that. But you need what you call by Sutameya Panya, as we see in the Sangiti Dasuttara Suttas in the Digha Nikaya. You need to understand why you want to practice the Sila. So Sutameya Panya, and then Sila and Samadhi, and then Chintamaya Panya and Bhavanamaya Panya. Now, Upapanna refers to this Panya Sila Samadhi perspective. So, Sutta means learning, right? Learning of those 9 sections, basically the Dhamma Vinaya at that time. So, now what may have happened to the one who has a little learning, who also has no practice at all? This person is seriously obstructed by the 3 fetters, which you call by Sakkaya Ditti, Vicikiccha, Silabhata Paramas, the fundamental 3 fetters that have bounded us into the samsara. Okay. Now, I want to share with you very interesting stanzas, some of the very interesting stanzas from the Dhammapada, which relate to this scenario. Now, there is a stanza which you can see at the end of the first chapter of the Dhammapada, this way: Bahumpiche sahitang bhasamano natakkaro hoti naropamatto gopova gavu ganayang paresang nebhagava samanyasa hoti pamatto naro sahitang bahum bhasamano api chetakkaro nahoti paresang gavu ganayang gopo iva samanyasa bhagava nahoti. Now, what this stanza clearly means is that if you know Dhamma a lot, but if you don't practice the Dhamma that you know, you are like a cowherd who is counting, or who is taking care of protecting others' cows, right? Which is not necessary. The exact translation goes this way: one who recites many teachings but being negligent doesn't act accordingly. Now, the fundamental reason why a lot of people who know Dhamma a lot, uh, you know, fail in their practice is that they are negligent. They don't have effort. So they are negligent, don't act accordingly. Like a cowherd counting others' cows. Why you want to protect others' cows? If you have, Buddha was talking about someone, kind of group of people at that time. So when somebody has a job of like kind of work of cow herding, why you want to take care of others' cows? You can count your own cows. Doesn't attain the benefits of the contemplative life. So the problem is, if you only learn the Dhamma, now Dhamma is not ours, right? Dhamma is of the Buddha, and who is, the Buddhas, and who are the noble individuals who taught us. And if you learn a lot of Dhamma, but if you are not putting them into practice, you are as if somebody who is counting others' cows, right? So don't be somebody like that. Okay, there is the Dhamma now, you learn it, and then you put that Dhamma into your own practice, and you try to cross the samsara. That should be your main aim, rather than keeping your Dhamma knowledge to be, I'm very knowledgeable in the Dhamma, I know everything, I can discuss Dhamma with anybody, I can challenge, I can defeat. These are actually nonsense, and you should never think about those aspects. In the second stanza of that particular stanza, Buddha says, Appam piche sahitang bhasamano dhammassa hoti anudhammachari ragancha dosancha pahaya mohang sammappajano suvimutta chitto anupadiyano idavahurangva sabhagava samanyasa. So who is attaining the great benefits of this contemplative life is somebody who recites, who knows the Dhamma a little. Even that person knows the Dhamma a little, but she lives according to that, the Dhamma that he knows a little. So what is really important is not how much you know, but how much you can practice, kind of quality over quantity. So what's the nature of this kind of a life? Dhamma sahoti anudhammachari lives according to the teachings of the Dhamma. Ragancha dosancha pahai moham, abandoning passion, ill will, delusion. So that particular person usually generally abandons raga, dosa, moha, which are poisons to our life. Sammappajano. Sammappajano means aware. What is being aware in this context means being aware of the panchakanta, 5 aggregates. Now the people who do not understand, who are not aware about their 5 aggregates, they are in they are in trap. But here, even this person knows a little of Dhamma, a little, but doesn't matter, because she understands what to do. So having understood the panchakanda, being aware, suvimutta chitto, being freed from the defilements. So we are always with defilements. So this particular person is trying to freeing up from defilements. Anupadiyano, not trying to take I, me, myself concept with regard to when it comes to oneself. Idavahurangva, in this life, so no clinging in this life or next life, or in the next life. Sabhagava samanya sahoti, attains the benefits of the contemplative life. Now what it means is the second person that we know who has a little learning but who is progressing, not the fourth person. The first person, the third person, and the third person, they are really not progressing. But the second person, even she has a little learning, but she is progressing. The reason is they practice what they know, even a little. So this is the person that we know with these 2 stanzas. And also it says in the 258 verse in Dhammapada, Natena pandito hoti yavata bahubhasati kemi aviri abayo panditoti pauchati. So one is not wise or learned merely because one speaks much, one speaks a lot of Dhamma, who is secure anger-free, fear-free is called wise. So if you want to be a wise person, you have to be anger-free, fear-free, right? So wise individuals are always uh, uh, practicing loving kindness. They are not getting angry. At the same time, they are fearless, right? And the same thing we can see in another stanza, which we call Natavata Dhammadaru Yavata Bahubhasati Yocha Appampi Sutvana Dhammang Kaina Pasati Save Dhammadaru Hoti Yo Dhammang Napamati. So Buddha always says that we should not delay in the Dhamma. We may delay in other things, but we should not delay in the Dhamma, because if you delay in the Dhamma, you are in a big trouble. So we have to practice the Dhamma, even we know a little. It doesn't matter how much you know. What matters to us is that whether we practice what we know, even that little. Now, if we further analyze of these four individuals, we also understand this is about four individuals who learn, practice, basically who are searching, who are journeying on the spiritual path. Now there's another sutta that we find in regard to this particular topic of these four individuals. It is called Uggatitagna Sutta, which is the 4.133 sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya. In this sutta, Buddha talks about four individuals when it comes to the understanding of the Dhamma, the real Dhamma. Now, understanding is not something that you do in a literal sense, right? That's why we can see these four people. The first person is called Uggatitagna, which you call the intuitive student. The second person is called Vipachitagna, the diffusive student. The third person is called Neya, the tractable student. The fourth person is called Padaparama, the root learner, who only understand the roots, the literal sense of the words, right? Let's take a look at who they are in great details. First person, Uggatitagna, a genius who understands from only a brief introduction. So there are people who understands the Dhamma. Now, understands the Dhamma, understanding the Dhamma doesn't mean that you learn in the literal sense. Attaining spiritual stages just by brief introduction, brief instruction is those who we call by Uggatitagna, genius. Second, Vipachitagna, the intellectual one who needs some detailed explanations. So when it comes to this second person called the diffusive student, Vipachitagna, this person needs some explanation, detailed explanations, but it won't take longer. This person understands the Dhamma, attaining spiritual stages, not understanding in the literal sense. Third person is called Neya, the tractable student, one who is amenable or needs some guidance over a course of time. There are, a lot of people in society who need some course of instructions or some amount of time to study guidance from a teacher. The fourth person is what we see in many places, the root learner, which is called by Padaparama, one who only knows the Dhamma at the literal level. Now this is what we understand by those people who can remember a lot of suttas, who can remember many things, but they are root learners. They don't understand how the learned Dhamma applies to their life. So they are called those who only know Dhamma Vinaya at the literal level. So they can say, this is what we can see in this Pitaka and this sutta, that sutta, here in the commentaries, in the sub-commentaries, in the Abhidhamma, but when it comes to their life, they don't know how to apply the Dhamma that they know. So they are called the root learners. I think a lot of people in today's time, they could be root learners. Okay, so what we have to understand is the fourth person, the fourth person that we know in the sutta that we talked to, the Appassuto Sutta, who has a great learning as well as who has a great practice of Sila Samadhi Panya with that learning, is someone either a Uggatitaknya person, or a Vipachitaknya person. So the fourth person that we know by great learning and great practice could be either an Uggatitaknya person or a Vipachitaknya person. So the genius and the intellectual who doesn't need a lot of instruction and who needs some instruction. And the second person who we understood by little learning, but who also progresses, in the Dhamma, Vinaya, could be the other two, Neyas and Padaparamas. One who is amenable or needs some guidance is the Neya, and one who only knows a teaching at the literal level. I mean, I'm not I'm not underscoring, belittling the Padaparamas or Neyas, because the thing is that they are also open to the next level, because it doesn't matter how much they know. What matters to any of Neya or Padaparama is some enlightening, some impressionistic advices, teachings for them to go to the next level. So basically the second and the fourth person who we know by progressing, they are what we know by Uggatitaknya, Vipachitaknya, and Neya and Padaparam. So Uggatitaknya, Vipachitaknya refer to the fourth person who has a great learning and who has a great practice, and Neya Padaparama refer to the second person in the classification which we know by, who has a little practice but who knows how to, who has a little learning but who knows how to put that learning into practice. And another very interesting thing is, how does the progress in the noble path, Arya Magga, get influence with different other Dhamma matters. Now we know the Pancha Balas, Indriyas, Pancha Ajjatika Indriyas, which are called by 5 spiritual faculties, Saddha, Virya, Sati, Samadhi, Panya, are what help us to stay on to the noble journey. Saddha is trust or confidence, Virya is effort, Sati is mindfulness, Samadhi is concentration, Panya is wisdom. So Saddha, Virya and Samadhi, Panya, so these are 2 aspects. Now we basically know the second person in the Appassuto Sutta, which you know by, who has a little learning but who has a practice of that little learning, that particular person has Saddha and Virya, confidence and effort. But when it comes to the fourth person who is having this great learning, but also not only the great learning but also this great practice, this particular person has both concentration and wisdom. So Sati is what helps all of us to stay on to these both, because the problem is some people might say, I don't know a lot of Dhamma, so I may not study, I may not be able to study. So we still encourage those people, but in case you think you won't have time and you are trouble learning, so then don't worry, try to practice what you know, so then you still have confidence and effort, because after you practicing Dhamma with Saddha and Virya, you will be moving on to Samadhi and Panya. Okay, so this is what I wanted to tell you, and at the end of the discussion I want to tell you that the most important thing that you need to learn in this sutta is that you need to learn but also practice. So if these two have to go in tandem, right? You can't choose one over the other. If you think you can't learn a lot because of some reasons, I don't think you may have any opportunities to say like that. But if you think you won't have a lot of times in reading some Pali and stuff, don't worry. Try to practice what you know. But you have to know the core of the Buddhist teachings, Noble Eightfold Path. Right? So that's the most important thing. If you are a person who knows a lot of Dhamma, then you need to practice more than you're learning. So that's what you need to learn in today's discussion. Okay, so let me see if there are some questions. If there are no more questions, and I'm gonna close this. May all the good karmas we've been accumulating in all these ways be shared by all the departed relatives who passed away in the name of all of us. May they be happy and peaceful. May they attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Idammi ñāti nang hutu sukhita huntu ñāteyu. Idammi ñāti nang hutu sukhita huntu ñāteyu. Idammi ñāti nang hutu sukhita huntu ñāteyu. We need to share all the good karmas with the deities as well and nagas. May all the good karmas be shared by all the deities and nagas. May they be happy and peaceful. May they attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Ittavata cha ammihi sambatang punya sampadang. Sabbe deva anumodantu, sabbe bhuta anumodantu, sabbe satta anumodantu, sabbe sampatti siddhya. Akasattha chibummattha devanaga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkang tulukasasanang chirang rakkang tudesanang chirang rakkang tumang paranti. Finally, let's make a great wish. This is the greatest wish that we've been doing all the discussions and in all the events. May all the good karmas we've been accumulating in all these ways be helpful for all of us to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Abhivadana silis nichang vaddha pachayino. Chattaru dhamma vaddhanti ayuvannu sukhang balang. Ayurarogya sampatti sagga sampatti mevacha atu nibbana sampatti iminate saminjatu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. I have something to tell you, and you know, my Abhidhamma series is continuing, and in this Wednesday's Abhidhamma discussion, which is a part of Dhammapada series, I'm going to be talking a new topic which is called Rupa, which is the third Paramattha Dhamma. And I've been thinking how I'm going to talk about Rupa, because Rupa is a very lengthy discussion, but I'm thinking maybe I'm going to be talking the Rupa analysis in 2 lessons. In the first on the first day, maybe this Wednesday I'm going to be talking one part of Rupa, maybe the other Wednesday I'm going to be talking the next, but I still have to think about, maybe I'm going to be talking everything on in one day, because that might be helpful for all of us. But let me think about it. But keep that in mind. I'm going to be talking about Rupa, matter. How did Buddha explain the matter, Rupa? So that is what we're going to be talking in this Wednesday's discussion, Abhidhamma discussion. Okay, thank you so much. Have a good day. Have a good night. Thank you.